I'm going to talk first off about the application form, and Robin, I think I'll be answering your question quite early on. I'm presuming everybody here is already registered, but if you haven't, I'm going to pop a link in the chat now. So that's there. The process doesn't take very long. It's 2 minutes maximum, and registration will close on Friday, the 24th of June. So everyone who is registered will then be sent via email a link to the application form, which is run through a site called Airtable, and will also be given a guidance note document, which we're going to look through together now. And this document will talk us through everything you need to know to complete your application form. So let me just share my screen. The document will look like this. Let me scroll down. There's the contents. So the deadline to complete your application will be Friday the 22nd of July. And the first thing you'll need to check is that you're eligible to apply. The eligibility criteria is that you must be over 18 years old. You must not be in full or part-time education in any subject during your time on the programme. You have to be based in the UK for the last 2 years. You need to plan to remain a resident in the UK for the 18-month duration of the programme. Provide 2 recordings of your work. Not have been on our New Voices, Embedded Pathways or Portfolio programmes, and not be currently on one of our other artist development programmes. We will then ask for some information about you, your name, address, etc. Included in this section is an optional diversity questions where we'll invite you to tell us if you come from an underrepresented background or have a protected characteristics, for example, gender or ethnicity. This information is confidential and will only be seen by the panel and the team reviewing the applications. At Sound and Music, we're committed to positive action in terms of addressing underrepresentation in the arts. This information may or may not be used in the selection process, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment when we get to how we look at the applications. You'll then be asked to upload a personal statement. Now, this can be in Word or PDF format and 2 sides of A4 maximum, or alternatively, you can submit your application as an audio or video file, and this should be no longer than 6 minutes. We ask that you don't send WeTransfer or Dropbox links, but please provide links to websites where we can access the material, for example, SoundCloud, Vimeo, YouTube. It can be a real backlog of downloading for panelists if they're having to download loads and loads of files and people's computers can't handle that. So in your personal statement, we have 4 sections that we'd like you to include. The first is your artist biography. We ask you to keep this short and succinct. A real good bit of advice is to try and just include the relevant stuff to where you are now and what is relevant to your application. You don't want to see like a whole side of a list of your whole experience, and I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of experience, so please try and be succinct. The second question, we would like to know where you are now. We want to know a bit about the work you create and why you create it. We want to know why you want to join New Voices right now. This is a unique development opportunity, and we want to know why this will make a difference to you at this exact point in your career. And the third point is, what are the barriers or sticking points at the moment? We're interested in what's difficult as well as what's going well. Now, Lau's going to expand a bit on this later on when we talk about what we're looking for, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about this in the questions afterwards. We'll also ask you what your creative ideas are, what you would like to achieve when you're on the programme. This doesn't have to be a final plan, and we don't have to know we don't want to see the whole project outlined because this is an artist development programme. We want to see the ideas that you have and how that relates to your artist development. So again, this is something we'll explore a little bit more when we discuss what we're looking for. We also ask what your other commitments are for the moment, and this isn't like to trip you up. This is New Voices is a flexible program, and it's designed to work around you, so we kind of want to know how we can best support you and your time on the program. You'll then be asked to submit 2 examples of your work. Again, please don't send files, Dropbox or WeTransfer links, instead provide website links again. We recommend that you submit tracks that demonstrate the breadth of your practice. Sometimes people would submit 2 tracks from the same album, and they may be talking about quite different areas of their practice, and that doesn't quite demonstrate what they do. But then again, if there's a specific reason why you're using the same type of work, that's absolutely understandable, but you just need to make an active choice and think about what you're submitting in reflection to your application form. When you submit your works, you'll also be able to upload a supporting description. I'll just scroll down a little bit. The supporting description should be no longer than 1 side of A4, so you have half a side of A4 for each work. It's in this place that you can talk a little bit about the work, describe what it is you're listening to. But for example, if your works are long, so if you've got 10 minutes, 20 minutes long piece, in that you can point the panel to exactly where you'd like them to listen to. Because we can't expect the panel to listen to all of 20 minutes of all of these applications, because it would take them days and days and days. So maybe suggest 3 to 4 minutes of your piece that best demonstrates the work that you want to do in that supporting document. So that is the application form. I'm going to stop sharing now. In line with our fair access principles, we have a different panel of 5 external panelists each year. We'll be announcing who those 5 panelists are shortly, so please keep an eye on our website and socials for that announcement. So on to the selection process itself. Everyone's application will be reviewed by 1 panelist and 1 member of the internal team initially, and they'll give each application a score out of 10 for the music and a score out of 10 for their application. These scores will then be aggregated, so added up, brought together, and the team will come together to review these scores. At this point, we'll take the top applications, and this is usually around 35 or so. And this is maybe when the diversity question might come into play. So if we say we have a cutoff point where 2 applications score the same, we may decide to take positive action and put forward the applicant with a protected characteristic. The top applications will then be sent back out to the panel and to the team, where they'll be scored again. The panel and the team will then meet in person to discuss these top applications in more depth, and during the course of this meeting, 18 applicants will be selected for interview. These applicants will be interviewed, and then 8 will be selected for the programme, and 10 will be given a seed award. So that's it at the moment for the application form and the selection panel. You're probably sick of my voice, so I'm going to hand over to Lau now, who's going to give us some top tips and outline what we're looking for in an application.
Thanks, Fee. So we're just over the years and having looked at many applications, we've sort of put some thoughts together around what we see as common reasons why an application is not scored highly or is not given as many chances as being selected as others. So we've put some of those together. It's not an exclusive list, but it is some of the common themes that we have encountered. To begin with, some of the applications will not be considered because they're ineligible, either because they do not fulfill the eligibility criteria or because there's problems with the application. So number 1 is to make sure when you submit music files or links to music files or videos or of your work, if the link is a passworded link, make sure you include that password in the document so we can access it. Please make sure that that link stays live for the duration of the selection. So if you submit the application in June, July, make sure that that link will be live all the way through to September, because the shortlisting will be taking place all the way up to the first week of September. We've had cases where links expire, links that password changes, links go down. We may or may not have time to chase people up and find the correct link for each work, and it's also not fair on everybody else who's submitted the links correctly. So make sure that the links will be live and they'll be accessible. Beyond that, when it comes to the application, more into the detail of the supporting document, a common theme is applicants who may have not read the guidance very carefully. So the statements did not seem to be responding directly to the program. It seems to be like a statement that could be applied to a number of different applications. So make sure you read the guidance really carefully, and you shape your supporting documents and any documents you support or compositions you support, you submit with the application accordingly to this program specifically. Following on from that, and this is something that is probably like a broader theme with all sorts of open calls. Applications that do not make a case specifically for an artist development program. A lot of people in the arts could very well do with extra money and extra support to develop an idea, to develop a project. But New Voices is not a project grant. There's other streams where you can apply for a project grant. So if it looks like an application where you've got an idea, you've got everything set, and you just need a little bit of money to make that happen, that's not quite the place for New Voices. If alongside that, an idea, there's also a clear element of artistic development that needs to take place, that would be a better placed proposition. But generally, we're looking for people who have got ideas, but not necessarily everything booked in, and they just await a small pot of money to make that happen. The next one is, it's not very clear in the application why now is the right time for the applicant to be entering this program. So again, this goes back to the nature of the program, which is an artist development program. This is about your development as an artist, your growth as an artist, the next step, next direction you're taking as an artist. We support that journey through a project that you apply, the idea of a project you apply with, but the main thing is the artistic journey, the development that you're undertaking. So why is now the right time for you to be undertaking that journey of artistic development? And what is that artistic development that you're seeking to explore? You can use this following question to sort of frame your approaching the application. If you could only apply for this opportunity once, would now be the best time or the right time for you to apply for it? Because you could also apply next year, you could apply the year after. So think about whether right now is the best time for you to be entering a program like this. And that, if you answer yes to that question, then that means you'll probably write a better application. Next is applicants who have just come out of an extended period of development, either through higher education or another artist development program. If you've just undergone a long period of development, you're going to have to make a much stronger case as to why now is the time for yet another development opportunity, as opposed to taking that learning and applying it in your practice and the real world. It's not to say that we don't take on participants like that, but you'll have to work harder to make a case as to why now is the case, particularly having just come through another program, or if you're already enrolled into another program, in which case you'll have to make the case. You have to make the case as to that you're able to do another program, an artist development program or a residency that might span months, and New Voices, because there's a time commitment and an energy commitment required. Another reason is also that when barriers are mentioned in the application in regards to development or change in direction or an element of the application, those barriers are, if those barriers are only external, then that also, it doesn't help us understand what are the internal barriers that we can help with. So if all the barriers that you present to your development are external, some of those might be alleviated through, for example, a small project grant that you receive through New Voices. But we'd like to see what are some of the internal barriers, what are some of the spaces that you've identified and reflected are areas that you'd like to grow in as an artist. So make sure that there's a balance of internal and external barriers if that forms part of your application. So on the other side, what are we looking for? So these are the things that keep in mind when you're writing your application. These are common reasons why applications from otherwise very well-meaning artists and with great material doesn't get as strongly considered as other applications. So in terms of what we are looking for, we're looking for artists who have original ideas and ambition to create unique and high quality work in whatever form. And this is not specific to genres. By quality, we don't necessarily mean technically, either in terms of the recordings that you submit or in terms of the compositions that you submit, but we're looking at interesting ideas within each genre in and of itself. something that might be pushing a boundary or exploring a really interesting and unique direction within that genre. Now, this can be very subjective, and we're very well aware of that. And this is one of the reasons why both internal and external panels rotate every year. So some people remain the same, but we also bring an entirely new external panel and also bring in new people into the process internally. So it's very possible that if you apply 1 year and you get some feedback, you may apply the following year and may get at a place depending on who's on the panel the next year. Having said that, we try and choose a very diverse panel in terms of genres, identities, experiences, backgrounds, and we try to choose people who are very able to look beyond their own genres. So just because you don't see your work or genre represented in the panel necessarily does not mean that your work will not be considered. We work really hard to make sure we work with people who can have a very broad understanding of quality of work, whether it's within their genre or not. Second is we're looking at artists at a pivotal moment in their career. So people who want to try something new or make a step change in career. And they may be unsure as to how to make that shift in their career, or might be lacking some of the artistic skills, professional skills to make that shift in their trajectory that they want to be moving towards. So a question that could be useful to ask is, where do you imagine you'll be after the program? What will have changed? What will be different about your practice after the program as opposed to where you are right now? You may not know exactly where you're going to be, but we want to see a sense of a direction in which you want to be growing as an artist. And last but not least is artists who are able to self-reflect and lead their own learning. So this is both in terms of the skills to self-reflect and lead their own learning, as well as the time capacity. So again, if you're occupied by a huge number of commissions and programs and work and so on, and it comes across your application that some of that is non-negotiable, and you may not have the time to really commit to this project, to commit to the time is needed to go through this artist development journey, we might say, look, best to apply the time when it's a bit less pressed on your time. So we're looking at people who are able to, both in terms of time as well as in terms of skills, to self-reflect and lead on that journey on their own. You get a lot of support from us, but it has to come from you at the bottom line. I was thinking, I've got the names of the panels. We're going to make an announcement tomorrow, Fee. So I may give everyone a preview of the panel for this year, if everyone's happy with that.
Yeah, exciting.
So we've got 5 panelists, external panelists, and they are in no particular order. Iconica, whose real name is Sarah Abdelhamid. She's a British Egyptian Filipino queer woman who works with DJ and experimental music with influences of grime, drill, and so on. Really interesting musician. I think signed up on Hyperdub. Then we've got Anthony R. Green. He's a Black American queer man, contemporary classical performance artist who's sort of focused with social justice elements involved. He was based in the States, where he runs Castle of Us Kins, which is a charity that aims to promote the work of Black composers and performers. But now he's since moved to Brighton, so he's very much UK based. He's also on our podcast if you wanna hear about him. Third is Breda Schemwill, I think is how you pronounce her name. And she's a white Scottish woman working in Scottish trad music mostly, but really, really interesting creator. Fourth is Ruth Leon, who's a white British disabled woman and alt pop singer-songwriter based in Newcastle. And last but not least is a former New Voices participant, or actually current New Voices participant at the very tail end of the program, Shirley Teta, who's a Black British woman working in jazz. So that is the panel for this year, and we're going to make a formal announcement with more details about each one of them and links to their work tomorrow, or if not tomorrow, literally any day this week. So keep an eye out. And going to hand back over to Fee.
Thanks, Val. That was really useful. So that is it from us now in terms of presentation.